Hello out there, Physics 277 students and any YouTube viewers who may be watching this video. Today we're going to discuss the Linux man command, which is one of the most powerful commands available to you on the Linux system. This command gives you access to the full set of manuals for the Linux system. This includes manual pages that describe the Linux commands themselves, as well as manual pages that contain information about the functions that are included in things like the C standard library, which will be of tremendous use to you if you're programming in the C or C++ programming languages. So how do we invoke this feature of the Linux command line interface? Well, we do it through the man command, MAN, which is short for manual. And all we need to do to find out information about a command using the manual pages is to type man, and in this example I'm just going to take a command which you should be very familiar with now, which is the ls command. We'll say man ls and I'll hit enter, and what I will get is a listing of the manual page, or what we call the man page for short, of the Unix ls command. All right. Now, let me say a little bit about the interface that we're working with here when we look at these manual pages. It's much like it works, I should say, much like the way the more command works. That is, we can space through the man page a screenful at a time. As we hit the space bar, I'm going to hit the space bar now, it takes us to the next screenful of the command, and the next screenful after that. And we can continue doing this until we get all the way to the end of the man page for that particular command. If I want to move back, I can hit the B key, and I can move back one screenful at a time. Every time I hit the B key, it takes me to another screenful. I'll hit the B key again, it takes me to another screenful. And if I continue doing that, I'll get all the way back to the beginning of the man page. If I am tired of reading this and I want to exit this interface, I simply type Q, and it will clear the screen and drop me back to the command line interface. So that's very useful. Let's take a look at the man page for the ls command, simply because it's a good illustrator of the structure of man pages, and understanding the structure of how man pages are put together on the Linux and Unix system will be very useful for you in learning how to look through them quickly to find the information you're looking for. So let's execute man ls again, and I'm back inside the man interface here. So all of the man pages are going to be structured in a very similar form. At the very top, there'll be a section here indicated with a name, which I'm highlighting with a cursor here, that gives me the name of the command and a short description of what the command does. It says list directory contents. All right. That you will always see. Following that, you will typically see a synopsis. And a synopsis is going to be very useful for you because it tells you how to use the command on the command line interface. So in this case for ls, I'm highlighting this here. You can see it says ls and then option in square brackets followed by the 3 periods here, the ellipsis, followed by file in square brackets followed by 3 dots here, the ellipsis again. And what this tells me is that I can use the ls command by typing ls, and then I'll have here options that are available to the ls command. Optional things in this synopsis are always going to be indicated by square brackets. So where it says square bracket option here, I can substitute in an option like the -L option, which you should be familiar with now, which gives you the long form listing that's available to you in the ls command, or the -A option, or so forth. And this ellipsis means that I can supply multiple options here. I can say ls space -L space -A, and so on. File here in square brackets means that I can supply an optional file or directory name here, and I can supply as many of these as I want. That's what this ellipsis indicates. I can supply multiple files. So the usage of this command is going to be ls followed by whatever options followed by whatever files I want to have listed, and that's what the synopsis tells you. Below the synopsis, typically you'll find a description. In the description, there may be a longer description of what the command does, much longer than what we find up here in the name section. And below that, we will typically find the options or the flags to the command that are available to you. And there may be quite a few. So this is only the first screenful of the ls man page. Let's hit spacebar. You can see starting with -a is the first option that we have listed here, which we should be familiar with. We've seen that in previous videos, and I'll put a link to the start of my videos on the Linux command line interface. If you haven't seen those already, you might want to go back and take a look at those. So I'll put a link to that in the corner of this video near the end of it. So -a will be the first option. The options are always listed alphabetically. And there may be multiple options that do the same thing. And here's an example. We have -a here as an option to the ls command. You can also specify --all as an option, which does the same thing. So sometimes there'll be multiple options that are available that do the exact same thing. Another example here is -A and --almost -all. You can use whichever one you prefer. Most people will probably prefer the shorter one. All right. But if I space through, I'll see many options to many of these commands. And again, they're always listed in alphabetical order. So right here is the long form listing format option that's available to you. Okay. Below that, below all the options, there'll typically be a section that tells you who is the author of the software, where to perhaps report bugs for the software, some information about the copyright of the software, and most useful, down at the bottom, there is typically a See Also section, which will point you to where you can find more information about this particular command and other commands that may be related. And that's often very useful when you're trying to figure out how to make use of a command. So that's the basic structure of a man page. But there's some other things you might want to know about here that are going to be very useful. All right. First of all, how would I find out more information about the man command? Well, I can ask for the man page for the man command. I just type that, do that by typing man, hitting enter, and I get the man page for the man command. And you can see that there's quite a bit of information here about the man command, which you can read about. So I'll quit out of that. We're not going to worry about that for right now. A very useful option to the man command is the -k option. And this is going to be useful when you don't know what command you're looking for. You hope that there's a command that does something, and you might want to find out what commands might be related to that. And what the -k option does is it allows you to specify a string of characters, and it searches the man page for man pages that contain that string of characters. Let me show you an example here. If I say man -k and list, right, it will search the man pages on the system for all man pages that contain the string list in them. All right. When I do that, there's quite a few here. I'm going to scroll back up in my terminal window so you can see how many there are in this particular case that feature the string list in them somewhere. All right. And there may be quite a few here. Now, let me point out some things to you here in doing this. When you see each entry in this list of man pages that has the keyword list in it, all right, after each entry, you'll see in parentheses here a number. Like in this case, it says 2. Up in here, in this case, it says 3. And in this case, it says 1 right here. And right here, it says 1. There's the man page for the list command. What does that 1 mean? It means it's in section 1 of the manual. All right. If it says 3, it means it's in section 3 of the manual. Why is this of interest? Because most of the commands you're going to want to invoke from the command line are going to be found in section 1 of the manual. Where does this section come from? Who decided what sections are there? Well, this dates back to the dawn of time in the Unix world, when Unix was being developed at Bell Laboratories, and the original developers basically put together a set of manuals. They broke the manuals up into sections. Section 1 had manual pages about the commands. Section 3 had manual pages about the various functions that were provided in the C library, and so forth. So if you're looking for information about commands, they're almost always going to be found in section 1. So you're going to want to focus when you do a man-k on the things that have a 1 after them if you're looking for commands. On the other hand, if you're looking for information about functions that you might find in the C standard library, those will typically be in section 3 of the manual. Let me illustrate that by example here. Let me quit out of this. All right, and let's do a man. Let's suppose I want to look for a function that involves the trigonometric sine function. I'll say man -k sine, S-I-N-E, and it'll give me a list of all of the manual pages where the keyword sine appears in it, or the character string S-I-N-E appears in it. And you can see there are quite a few here, and these are all in section 3 of the manual. Okay, so let me just clear the screen here of this information. What else is of use? We've seen the -K option. There's one final thing I want to tell you about, which is the apropos command. That's apropos, A-P-R-O-P-O-S. All right. The apropos command is another way of essentially doing man-K. You'll see that used at times, and that's very useful here too. So if I say apropos list, essentially it's going to give me the same thing as man-K. So you can use essentially either one. The apropos command has the ability to take into it regular expressions as well, so you can search for things that might begin with list but end with something else. I mean, there are ways to do that. We're not going to concern ourselves about that in that video. So the two commands you may find useful here for finding out more about what commands are available are the man with the -K option and the apropos command. Both of these will be quite useful to you, and you should get used to using them. So that's all we're going to talk about in this video. If you have questions, if you're one of my Physics 277 students, please see me during office hours. I'll be happy to talk to you about it, or post a comment below this video on the YouTube links. Or if you're one of the viewers out there who may be looking at this that is not registered for Physics 277, you're also welcome to post a comment. I'll try to respond to those as soon as possible. Look for the links here in the upper right corner of the video that I'm going to place near the end of this video. And if you like this video, please consider subscribing and give me feedback. I always like to know whether you're happy with this, or if you have suggestions about what you would like to see in future videos, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you here next time.